Hello, my name is Sydney, and I'm with the Nooksack Salmon Enhancement Association. We also go by the acronym NSEA. We are excited for the opportunity to share our knowledge about salmon through this online presentation. We're going to explore the different salmon species, their life cycle, and learn a few new vocabulary words. To explain a little bit about NC and why we are the ones teaching you about salmon, I'm going to share our mission statement. It says, NC educates, inspires, and engages the community to take action to keep wild salmon here for future generations. This means that we think salmon are really important for the health of our ecosystem, and we like to share that with our community. Our goal at NC is to make Whatcom County a healthy and safe place for salmon to live, and to recover salmon populations that have been declining. This presentation is usually given in 4th grade classrooms throughout Whatcom County as a part of our Students for Salmon education program. Our program gets 4th graders engaged in the classroom and on an interactive field trip to a river or stream near their school. Although we cannot go on a field trip together today, I hope that you can continue today's lesson by going to www.n-sea.org and completing our habitat investigation activity at a waterway near you. Okay, now it's time to jump into some more detailed salmon learning. The first thing I want you to think about is, where do salmon live? The answer might be obvious. They live in the water. But they are a part of a larger system than just the waterways. They are living in a watershed, and we are too. To help us understand what a watershed is, I want you to cup your hands to look like a bowl similar to the picture on the screen. If your hands represented this picture, what do you think your fingertips would be? What looks rigid at the top of the picture? You guessed it, the mountains. The lines where your hands meet could represent the river, and the space between your arms could be the ocean. Now imagine that someone is pouring water just on your fingertips, like rain falling on the mountains. Where do you think that water would flow? Well, I think it would start at my fingertips and drain down through the river and into the ocean. This shows us that all of the water that falls on the land eventually drains out into the ocean. And a watershed is the area of land that is being drained. Pause this presentation and discuss or think about this new vocabulary word. Does it make sense to you? A watershed changes depending on where you live, because the mountains and the rivers will be different. Here you will see a map showing a selection of the county that we live in, Whatcom County. Each color represents a different watershed in our area. There are 3 main ones. The green one shows the coastal watershed, where the rain that falls on the land flows quickly into the ocean. The pink shows the large Nooksack River watershed, where the rain flows into a small creek that leads into the Nooksack River, and eventually to the Pacific Ocean through Bellingham Bay. Have you ever seen the Nooksack River? The yellow area shows the Fraser River watershed, which is mainly in Canada. The Fraser River supports a huge number of sockeye salmon. You can use this map to determine which watershed you live in by finding your elementary school that is labeled. Think about the waterways that are close to where you live. The next vocabulary we are going to learn is Riparian Zone. Try saying it in slow motion to really pronounce it right. Riparian Zone. To put it simply, the riparian zone is the area of land bordering a stream or a river. If you have seen the Nooksack River before, it's likely you were standing in the riparian zone while you could see it. If you've ever explored stream banks or walked along a creek, you are in the riparian zone. Since this area is so close to a waterway, we know that it has lots of impact on the health of that waterway. For example, think about the roads or buildings that are really close to a river. Do you think these would have a positive impact on the river? Most likely not. Things that create pollution can make the stream unhealthy. You can see in this picture the riparian zone has a buffer of trees, and these trees help to keep the water healthy in many different ways that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Specifically, a variety of native trees and shrubs are better to have than invasive plants. Take a moment to think about what the difference between a native plant and an invasive plant could be. A native plant is one that has been living in this region for thousands of years. These plants are well adapted and have a long relationship with the other plants and animals that live here. They know how to give each other space so that all can survive. An invasive plant is one that is newer to this area and has no natural competitors or threats to keep its population in check. This means they will take over a lot of space and have seemingly unlimited growth. These plants tend to cover over a lot of native plants and block their sunlight. An example of an invasive plant in our area is the Himalayan blackberry. As I'm sure some of you have seen, these blackberry bushes are not very fun to walk through. They also grow everywhere. While they do provide some delicious berries, they can get in the way of wildlife trying to pass through. Like I mentioned earlier, a healthy riparian zone full of native trees and shrubs can help keep the water cold, clean, and clear. We call that the 3 C's. Try to say them all as fast as you can 5 times in a row. Cold, clean, clear, 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 cold, clean, clear. Salmon need water that is cold, clean, and clear to be healthy, and native plants do a lot to help out. For cold water, salmon like to have cold water as opposed to warm water because salmon breathe oxygen just like we do. Do you know how salmon breathe underwater? Their gills. The oxygen that salmon need is different than ours because it is dissolved in the water. Salmon need their water to be cold because cold water can hold a lot more oxygen than warm water can. Considering native trees and shrubs, let's think about how they could help keep our water cold. Imagine it's summertime and you're standing in a big open field with the sun beating down. You're trying to find anything to help, and in the distance you see a tree. What could this tree provide for you? It could provide shade. And just like that, if there are trees in a riparian zone, it helps to block out sunlight and give shade to keep the water cold. This is especially important with climate change having an impact on water temperatures of streams. Moving on to clean. Salmon need clean water to survive. This one might seem obvious because everyone needs clean water. But to have clean water for salmon means that it is free of pollution, whether that is pollution that you can see, like bottles and garbage, or pollution that's harder to see, like oil and fecal matter. Going back to trees, they can help keep the water clean by providing a buffer or filter zone between the stream and things that pollute it. If there's a nearby road, a line of trees could filter out some of that pollution and gas before it gets into the stream. Especially the roots in the ground help trap and break up pollution. Moving on to our third one, which is clear. While clear water may sound pretty similar to clean water, we talk about them differently. Salmon need clear water not only to see where they're going, but also to see predators that want to eat them and prey that they want to eat. An unclear stream could also get caught in the fragile gills of a young salmon. Often when a stream is not clear, it is because of erosion. Erosion is the slow breaking down of something over time. If you've ever seen a stream bank falling apart or sliding down, that would be erosion. The Grand Canyon is a huge display of erosion. When a stream bank is sliding into the water, all that dirt is now making it difficult for the living things in the water. Native plants help to keep the water clear because their roots can hold the stream bank in place and prevent erosion from happening. Their roots can act as an anchor. To review just what we just learned about the 3 C's, take a look at this photo and decide what makes this healthy habitat for salmon. Keep in mind what we just talked about. I think that this looks like healthy habitat for salmon because there are many trees around it. We know that these trees are providing shade, preventing erosion, and filtering out pollution. I also see some big rocks that young salmon could hide under, and it doesn't look like there's any roads or development nearby. Now we're going to think about why we care about salmon. Why is it even important to learn and talk about salmon? Take a few seconds to think about why you care about salmon or why other people do. For one reason, salmon provide us with food. They're a rich source of healthy fats and oils. I especially love smoked sockeye salmon. Not only are they a great food source for humans, but they also form the diet of a lot of other animals in our ecosystem. Here are just a few of the bigger examples. We see an orca, a bear, and a young eagle. But what's in this top left corner? Did you know that trees also eat salmon? Yep, that's right. After the salmon has finished its life cycle, it will die along the riverbank and slowly break down over time. As the salmon is being eaten by things big and small, it eventually breaks down enough to become part of the soil. The trees then soak up their nutrients from the soil, including the nutrients that the salmon just deposited. Scientists have tested the trees all the way up on Mount Baker, and they have found ocean nutrients inside of the trees. That's because the salmon carry these nutrients all the way from the ocean. Salmon are also culturally important to many of the native people of this region. They have had a relationship with salmon for thousands of years and continue to this day. Salmon are a large part of the spiritual and cultural identity of native people in this region, and the people in our region specifically include the Lummi Nation and the Nooksack tribe. Do you know a person that likes to fish? People who fish for salmon or cook with salmon at a restaurant rely on salmon too. They need a healthy salmon population to make money to support their families. So we've discussed why salmon are important, and now we are going to learn about the 5 different species of salmon. When we talk about salmon, it's not just one type. There are many different ones who have different colors and characteristics. We're going to use our hand to figure out how to remember these 5 different types of salmon. Each finger on your hand has a special trick to represent one of the salmon. When we start with thumb, you can stick your thumb out and say chum. And this represents the chum salmon, otherwise known as the dog salmon. Your pointer finger, sticking it out, that represents the sockeye salmon, which is the red salmon, the one I mentioned earlier that lives in the Fraser River. The middle finger is your biggest finger, and it represents the biggest salmon, and this is for the Chinook salmon, or the king, otherwise known as. Moving on to your ring finger, oftentimes people wear silver on this finger, so this represents the silver salmon, which is otherwise known as the coho. And last but not least is your pinky, and this is your smallest finger and it represents the smallest salmon, the pink salmon, otherwise known as the humpy because they get a large hump on their back at the end of their life. So now that you know all 5, I'm going to repeat them all pretty quick. I'm going to start with thumb. Thumb is chum. Your pointer finger is sockeye. Your middle finger is chinook, or king. Your ring finger is silver, or coho. And your pinky is for pink. Now that you know all the 5, try to pause this video and repeat them all on your own. I hope the 5-finger hand trick was just one of many new things that you learned about salmon today. If you want to learn more, continue this lesson with our salmon life cycle video next, which you can find on our website, www.n-sea.org. You can also complete our habitat investigation activity at a local waterway near you. Thanks for watching.